What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and welcome back to the ShowMeFootball.com podcast. I am finally back to talk Battlehawks with Prime Connor, none other than Prime Connor, of course. And you know what? I'm just excited to talk about the Battlehawks again because I'll tell you what, out of all the videos I do covering football teams in the state of Missouri, Mizzou, the Chiefs, Battlehawks, I think I have the most fun doing Battlehawks videos, and I think my Battlehawks videos back when we really did them, they tend to do the best because the Battlehawks fan base is just such a tight-knit community, and the city of St. Louis really rallies around the Battlehawks. And I don't know what it is, but I do know that St. Louis is a football city, and the Battlehawks are proof of that. And I'm just excited to talk about the Battlehawks again because this is something where when me and you talked about the XFL in 2020, that was something that was really a big hit for us. Like people enjoyed listening to us talk about the Battlehawks. So, Connor, I'm just glad to be back and talking about the XFL.
I'm glad to be allowed back on the channel.
Well, I mean, who else am I going to talk Battlehawks with?
I don't know. Marlon?
No, I can't do Marlon on the podcast. I can't. He doesn't even you remember what happened last time we did spring football with him?
I wish that live was recorded. That actually went really well. There was a lot of people that just showed up in that.
We actually had a lot of people, and they were actually tuned in and listening.
But prime Twitter Spaces.
Yeah. Anyway, this is our first podcast back in a long time talking about the Battlehawks. I just kind of wanted to do a rundown of everything Battlehawks related and everything XFL, just everything that Battlehawks fans are talking about. First of all, we finally got a schedule. People were getting kind of worried, and I didn't really blame them.
By people, you mean you?
No, I mean, I'm on these Battlehawks Facebook pages, and everyone is asking, when the hell is the schedule going to come out? I need to make plans in advance. I'm a season ticket holder. I would like to know when I can actually use my season tickets. And people were getting kind of worried because we were less than 50 days away from the season and the schedule still hadn't been released yet. But they finally came out with the schedule, and the Battlehawks' first 3 games are actually going to be on the road. Week 1, they're going to play the San Antonio Brahmas. Then they're going to play the Seattle Dragons week 2 at DC Defenders. And then their first home game finally will come week 4 against the Arlington Renegades. And Connor, I'll just ask you, what were your initial thoughts of the schedule being released, and how do you feel about the first home game not being until week 4? Personally, I like it because there will be a lot of buildup and anticipation heading into that first Battlehawks home game. Plenty of time to sell those tickets for the first home game. I went and looked at tickets before we started, and just like the last XFL, it's just going to start with the lower bowl. And if Battlehawks fans can sell that out again, which I think there's a really good chance of that happening, then we could see them open the upper deck potentially for future games. But what was your initial reaction to the schedule release?
Yeah, I disagree with that sentiment. I think week 1, for those of you that don't know, I've made a decent amount of spring football videos that get a little traction here and there. So this is stuff that I put a lot of thought into, but I think with a league like this, you really got to put your best foot forward first. And, we've seen with all of these leagues so far how impactful week 1 is. You really need to set the tone for the rest of the season. But I think you have to go home games in your best cities for week 1. So that would be St. Louis, San Antonio, Orlando, and Seattle would probably be your highest attendance teams, I guess. I don't know. But the point is a lot of people are going to be tuning in to week 1, and you need to put full stadiums on TV, right? So the Vegas Vipers play in a stadium full of 5,000, or the capacity is 5,000 or something like that. I think It might be a high school stadium or something. We can talk more about that disaster later, but
sure.
I really think that if you show that this league is filling up former NFL venues, that's really going to set the tone better and allow people to continue to watch, because that was an issue with the USFL. Since all the games were in Birmingham, the only games where people actually showed up were the Stallions games, And that caused a lot of people not to watch the league just because the environment felt very sterile, like the NFL during the COVID season, and they just didn't want to watch that. So you need like a rowdy crowd to get people excited about the league.
Yeah, I think what maybe they were going for here is, you mentioned how you want the stadiums to be filled when the league first starts, but I think maybe what they're trying to avoid is this really good opening weekend, games at home of the teams that have the best attendance, like the Battlehawks. We anticipate them to have some of the best attendance in the league, but if you have that at the very beginning, then you could see the league flame out maybe, and instead there's this little pick-me-up game after the first 3 weeks where the Battlehawks finally get their first home game and people see a full stadium and the league gains a little bit more interest. You were talking about how the games during the USFL were very sterile and the environment was very sterile. And I obviously expect different with the XFL because these games will actually be played in the cities in which the teams are based, not all the games in Birmingham, which is where I think the league really messed up. I know they had their reasons in which they had to do that, but man, it's just so much better for the players in this league too when they actually get to play in front of like their actual true fans. Like I was watching a video the other day on Twitter, someone tweeted it, that kick return touchdown that the Battlehawks had during the 2020 XFL season and just how raucous the crowd was. And I love that. Like I love a league, a small spring league like the XFL, just having a sellout crowd in the lower bowl, and like the players that are here to play in the XFL, they actually feel like they're playing for somebody. They feel like they're playing for something. And that's what I hope the league can achieve this time, league wide, not just in St. Louis.
Well, I mean, if you want to kind of transition into what we like about what The Rock has done, that's actually a really interesting point that I want to talk a bit on. If you have nothing else to say on our current topic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just kind of saying how I really hope that the fans can show out this time. I trust the fans will show out for the Battlehawks. I don't know about the other teams, but we can kind of transition into what The Rock has done, because I do think one thing that he has done well is change some of the cities in which these teams are in, and I think that'll help the league out a little bit. Because like I remember last time they had a team in Los Angeles that was a terrible mistake. So
Right. So I honestly like, for the most part, what he's done with the cities, because obviously the Battlehawks were a must bring back. Everyone else was kind of a question mark, but you had to bring the Battlehawks back, and they did that. But the other big thing to me was the addition of the San Antonio Brahmas, which,
yeah,
honestly, the league's probably rigged for the San Antonio Brahmas. Let's be real, because The
they're on
Rock and
everybody's jersey.
well, no, that's the Rock's clothing brand, but just how much like the symbolism of like the Brahma means to the Rock and stuff like that. They're probably gonna, have a couple things bounce their ways. But you know, you watch the AAF a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Well, so then you would know that the San Antonio Commanders had better attendance in the AAF season than the Chargers did. Um, so the XFL, for the most part, like, yeah, people showed up in like DC and Seattle and stuff like that, but for the most part, they were carried by St. Louis. Like the other teams were kind of like events and things for people to go to, but the Battlehawks, had a cultural impact, which is what I think you always have to shoot for with these sports leagues, right? You want your team to be embedded in the city's culture, and that's what the Battlehawks were. I remember seeing like pictures from like a McDonald's where they had like a Battlehawks meal and shit like that. But that's what you get in San Antonio too, because San Antonio is in a similar situation where they're also a football city. They almost got the Raiders a few years ago, and they really supported the San Antonio Commanders. So the Brahmas are just another like lock in success that you can kind of pencil in to have great attendance. And I also really like the addition of Orlando. I'm also, I watched the AAF, and I don't remember the Orlando Apollo's attendance being anything too spectacular. I think they had good attendance just because the team was good with
I know
Garrett Gilbert.
I know
But
Seattle was second in the last XFL run. Seattle was the other big city next to St. Louis that was getting pretty good attendance.
right, but I'm just talking about like the AAF cities right now.
Yeah.
But I just always feel like the cities that don't have an NFL team are going to have the advantage. Um, but like that part, he did a good job on, except with the exception of Vegas. Like if you
Well, okay,
saw,
actually, I was gonna say something about Vegas real quick. I know he wanted a big market like the XFL in 2020. They put teams in New York and they put teams in LA because they wanted those TV markets to be interested, and they had to do that for their reasons. But as far as the Vegas team, I understand that you would want them in another city like Syracuse that maybe you really wanted an
no,
XFL
San
team
Diego.
or San Diego, sure. I'm just throwing out an arbitrary city that could use an XFL team. But Vegas, that is a big market that I'm okay with them putting an XFL team in because I'd rather, if you're going to put an XFL team in a big market, I would rather have it in Vegas than Los Angeles or New York because in New York, you already have two NFL teams there. You have a bunch of other sports that are really popular there. Los Angeles, they're not a football city. I don't know how many times we need to say that. Los Angeles is not a football city. Vegas, I think, can be an XFL city. I don't think they'll necessarily be packed with Vipers fans, but there's a lot of tourists coming through there. They love sports, just like the Raiders. You know, the Raiders, Allegiant Stadium, it's always sold out. Might not necessarily be with Raiders fans, but people there like football. So I think the Vegas Vipers, I understand that you may have wanted them in a different city. I would have liked to have seen it, but I understand putting them in Vegas. And I think Vegas is one of the better big markets that they could have chosen for an XFL team.
To me, like I've always thought that like I'm opposed to DC, Arlington, Houston, Vegas, and Seattle. Like I understand that Seattle had a good run last year, but to me, my mind just goes to cities like Oakland, San Diego, Birmingham, Memphis. Those two cities the USFL went to, and just teams like that. Like bringing back the Houston Roughnecks is a questionable decision to me, and just a lot of these just don't seem great to me.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick an NFL city to put a team in, I'd pick Chicago, just because Chicago has two MLB teams, so they have proven they can easily support two teams in the same sport. I mean, I know it's a little different in this case, but still, it shows that they're big enough to do so. And the Bears have just been so bad for a while that I think they'd come out in support. Whereas, like, when like the XFL and USFL both went to Tampa, why would Tampa care about these leagues?
Yeah.
But Seattle is full of passionate football fans, so they'll show up. And DC did a pretty good job last time, but I remember the bulk of DC's TV viewers came from Columbus because of Cardell Jones. So I don't know. I feel like they still could do a little better job, but The Rock definitely did a better job with the cities than Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting you actually bring up kind of the player connection that gave some of these XFL teams such high viewership this time because I think that's something that The Rock maybe didn't do as well on this time. I understand they had to have a redraft and you can't force players to go to certain teams, but if you really want this league to do well, you have to try and replicate some of the things that XFL 2020 did that made it so great. And one of those things is putting players that fans developed a connection with back on their respective teams from the last run, assuming that that's still a possibility. And that was a possibility for Jordan Tamu, the former Battlehawks quarterback. He got assigned to the DC Defenders, or he signed with them. I forget which one actually it
But he
was.
got a sign there. But
Okay.
I will say the issue with that was he was under contract with the USFL
Yeah.
until like what, January 1st. It was
Yeah,
something like that.
that was when he was actually allowed to get out of the contract if he wanted to.
Yeah. So I think like they just put McCarron on the Battlehawks, not knowing if Teamu would be allowed to come to the XFL.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And look, I was happy when they picked up AJ McCarron. I think he's a perfect St. Louis XFL quarterback, and he played at Alabama. He
Roll
played in
Tide.
some really big games. He's a championship type quarterback in college. But Tamu was just so loved in the city. Like, even on Battlehawks pages to this day, they still talk about Tamu. They're constantly following what Jordan Tamu is doing in his NFL career and other spring leagues. And that just seems like a move that had to happen. Like, you had to bring Jordan Tamu back to the Battlehawks.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to receive a standing ovation whenever DC comes to St. Louis. I don't know if that's even on the schedule, but I assume it
They
kind of has to
do.
be.
They do go on the road to DC in the first 3 weeks.
Well,
I don't know. I don't
that
know if
doesn't
they
help.
come. Yeah,
Let
I
me just
don't.
peep their schedule.
DC does come to St. Louis on March 18th.
Yeah, week 5, March 18th on FX. Really, football on FX?
Yep.
That's
I think
weird.
I think that's isn't that just short for Fox?
No, it's like a Fox alternative network.
Oh.
They
But
usually play like movies on it.
but yeah, I mean he'll be coming to town, assuming he's still on the team, because you can't. I mean, he could sign in the NFL again or something like that. I don't know.
I think he'll play. I'm not really worried about him not winning the starting job or going to the NFL. He's just kind of just good enough to be a good XFL quarterback,
Yeah,
Assuming
but
Reggie Barlow is an idiot and benches him because, their other quarterbacks are Eric Dungy. I don't even know who that is. Tell him who's going to start.
yeah, he should. I mean, he was the face of the XFL the last time around. Him and PJ Walker were the two really good quarterbacks in the league. And
Dude,
PJ Walker is obviously still sticking around in the NFL. But I mean, this time I like a lot of the players that the Battlehawks were able to pick up. They were able to pick up, I think, a couple Mizzou players, one of which being Ali Green, the cornerback from a couple years ago. As long as you got a few local connections, or you got players that used to be stars in college that fans get nostalgic for and just really want to see again. And we talked about it. Cardale Jones, a bunch of people in Ohio tuned in to watch the XFL just to see Cardale Jones because he was beloved at Ohio State. You need players like that in this league. And you also need players that are just good so you can have a somewhat decent product for fans to watch. And I do think the XFL was able to bring in some good talent. I really like some of the players that the Battlehawks were able to bring in. AJ McCarron being one. Darius Shepard, the wide receiver from North Dakota State, spent some time with the Green Bay Packers and Kansas City Chiefs. I think he might be pretty good. Were there any players that stuck out to you that the Battlehawks were able to bring in besides the names I mentioned?
well, there's ones that I recognize the name, like Hakeem Butler and Travis
Yeah.
Feeney and Mike Rose and things like that. But to me, this is the third time I've done this with the original XFL, the AAF, and the USFL, and I've kind of learned that whatever team you think is going to be good and whatever team you think is going to be bad, it does not matter. These things are almost impossible to predict. I really don't know what the way to succeed in these leagues are, how you predict them. But Vegas thinks that Battlehawks have the best odds to win the championship. But with these brand new leagues, it's always such a crapshoot. So it's really hard to tell. But Austin Prohl is another one I recognize, and there's guys that I know here. But you really can't predict anything. And I know they've already lost a couple guys. One of their good pickups was Channing Stribling, who was the best defensive player in the USFL. But he actually left the Battlehawks to go re-sign with the USFL, which for his career is probably a good decision.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the USFL, actually, how do you feel? Because because the USFL is still going, people forget that. How do you think the XFL? What do you think? How do you think the USFL still existing changes the outlook for the XFL? Because last time there was no other small football league that the XFL was competing with, and now the USFL is still out there. Do you think that will have a negative effect on the XFL, or do you think it won't be that big of a deal?
I don't think it's going to be that big a deal because the XFL has the advantage in money and the XFL has the advantage in timing because, you know, it's not going head to head. You know, the XFL is the spring league, the USFL is very much a summer league. You know, so like as soon as the XFL season is over is when the USFL is going to start. So it's not like they're going head to head. If a player wanted to play in both leagues, they realistically could, you know. But there's been a lot of USFL players leave the league for the XFL, and there's been a handful of XFL players leave the league for the USFL. I'm not sure what the money looks like between the two leagues. I feel like the XFL probably is paying them more, but I think they can coexist. But I think that eventually a merger would be the best for all of them. I was actually considering um, making a video just talking about a potential spring league merger and between them or between the XFL, USFL, and CFL because there had already been talks between the XFL and CFL. We know all about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like a merger is inevitable, but I think there could be a few seasons of just going with them coexisting. But I don't know how long they can coexist, but for the foreseeable future, they can. Realistically, the most likely scenario is one league goes under and the other one buys their assets. Like
I
that's the unfortunate reality of it.
I think that would probably be the USFL. I think the XFL has significantly more financial backing to it. Example number one being Redbird Capital and The Rock. I mean, they're very invested in this thing. There's a lot of money in those two. And you actually have a league in which the teams play in the city that they're actually from because they can afford that. I think the USFL would definitely have to go down under. I think, though, the XFL just needs to focus on getting up and running this season because you mentioned the CFL and that whole thing. This league would have started in 2022 if not for the fact that they screwed around with the CFL. I understand why they had conversations about a merger, and if it would have happened, it actually would have been great for the XFL to do so. But the thing fell through, and now we had to wait one more year for the XFL. People have been anticipating this for a long time, especially Battlehawks fans. So this season just needs to be about the XFL coming back, and then I think they can worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, a merger just seems like the smartest decision for both parties. And it doesn't even have to be like a 16 team league. That's not even practical considering um, both leagues have teams in Houston. But maybe they could do something like, well, the USFL's big addition for year two is they got rid of the Tampa Bay Bandits and they brought in the Memphis Showboats. And they're going to have their playoffs once again in Canton, but the regular season is going to be split between Birmingham and Memphis. So I think that's going to help them quite a bit because I think Memphis is another like football city that's going to show up for the Showboats. And then, you know, the Stallions have a very loyal fan base that you can probably put in the same conversation as like the Battlehawks and the San Antonio Commanders and teams like that. So I think the USFL should be okay. I think the USFL knows what they are,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the advantage over the XFL and the fact that they got through a season. You know, the AAF went under, the XFL got shut down by COVID, but the USFL was able to crown their champion. So there's some continuity there. There's characters coming back that we know, like Bo Scarborough and Jamar Smith on my beloved Birmingham Stallions, and things like that. And another just aspect that I remember is like honestly, Jordan Teamu leaving the USFL is probably a good thing for them because he'd be playing for the Memphis Showboats next year, and their current quarterback is Brady White, who played college ball at Memphis. So that's going to help the Showboats quite a bit there. But I feel like that's another thing I was going to bring up. Just a simple thing that all these leagues should do. The AAF did it where they didn't have a draft. They just kind of assigned players to teams based on
Yeah.
like regional history. Like I remember Trevor Knight was assigned to the Arizona Hotshots because he was just on the Cardinals practice squad. and they were just assigned places that they have history. And if they didn't have history, they were usually assigned to like the Salt Lake City Stallions just because to try and even the playing field. That to me is what should be going on. Every Mizzou player should be assigned to the Battlehawks, and if the Battlehawks don't want them, they can trade them later. I really don't care that much about parity because, like I said earlier, you don't know how to predict this stuff. And the Orlando Apollos dominated the uh, AAF because they were perceived to be assigned the best players. But the XFL 2020 had a draft, and the Houston Roughnecks still dominated the league. So I don't think that parity is really a concern with the draft. I think when it comes to players, you should be more worried about jersey sales than parity.
You're worried about getting eyes on the screen and butts in seats for these games. That is the number one priority. Later on, if you want to do something a little more crazy, sure, that's fine. But I definitely think, yeah, they need to assign players based on regional connections and connections to the local cities because that's what gets people interested. You're going to have your passionate fans out there and fans that like the XFL no matter what. But to the casual football fan, if they hear, and I'm just throwing out an example, if they hear that, I don't know, shoot, who's a good former Mizzou player that people like?
Michael Maietti.
Sure. If
He's
they
on the
hear,
Defenders.
yeah, if people are like, oh, you know what, former Mizzou Tiger Michael Maietti is, snapping the ball for the St. Louis Battlehawks. I'm going to go out and see him. Like we saw that last time with LaDainian Washington and Marcus Lucas. LaDainian Washington was so popular among the fans. He interacted with the fans before and after the games, and just the team and the city embraced him. And I want to see that with these teams. I want to see the cities embrace their own players and really develop a connection with these teams that they play for. And I also want to see, former college stars, again, Cardell Jones, the example, when a bunch of Ohio State fans tuned in to watch him. I want to see the XFL really try hard to get players like that. I know, like we threw out outlandish ideas like Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick playing in the XFL. There's a bunch of people that have strong feelings towards or against Colin Kaepernick and Tim Tebow, but they are polarizing figures that would absolutely get eyes on the XFL. I mean, there would be a bunch of people, there would be millions of people around the country that tune in to see Colin Kaepernick play in the XFL to see if he either sucks so they can cheer about him sucking, or to say, hey, he deserves another shot in the NFL. Look what Colin Kaepernick is doing in the XFL. I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, remember Tim Tebow? He signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Everyone knew he was not making the team, and he had the number one selling jersey in all of the NFL there for a few weeks just because he was on the Jaguars.
Just because he's Tim Tebow, and Tebow Mania is still going well in Florida. Could you imagine if the XFL Orlando Guardians had Tebow on their roster?
It would be fantastic for the league.
I know that's something that the AAF tried to do with Steve Spurrier on the Apollos. They really tried to get Spurrier to recruit Tebow, but I think Tebow's happy with his SEC network gig right now, and Kaepernick wanted like $20 million to play in that league. So it'll take a pretty penny, but I think a guy that the XFL could get if they tried to was Johnny. Johnny's playing in the fan-controlled football league right now, and he almost single-handedly made that league because now it's pretty popular. They've gotten through 2 seasons, and he's still playing in it. So I feel like if you get Johnny Manziel to play for any of the Texas teams, I'm not sure which my geography is a little screwed up. I'm not sure which team is closest to College Station because there's 3 Texas teams, but whichever one is closest to College Station, just put Johnny on that one and you'll sell out of merchandise. And
yeah, there's also another player that I forgot about that was recently added to the XFL, and this is a perfect example and something more of what they need to do. Josh Gordon, he's going to play for the Seattle Dragons.
And he was a Seahawk.
Yeah, and he was a Seahawk, and I think Seahawks fans really like Josh Gordon. And Josh Gordon also is just this former NFL star that I think people would enjoy watching. And it's like, oh, Josh Gordon is in the XFL? Let me just turn on a game and see how Josh Gordon is doing.
Yeah, I think Josh Gordon's going to be the most popular player on the Dragons easily, and they couldn't have picked a better team for him because I think Seattle is the only team that he played for that has an XFL team, an XFL equivalent. Maybe you could put him in whatever Texas team is closest to Waco, but that's it. It's
Sure.
not like there's a Cleveland XFL team. But I've been talking about the USFL a lot, but it's a good example. About halfway through the USFL season, Bo Scarborough joined the league, and they said fuck the waiver process for Bo Scarborough, and they just put him on the Birmingham Stallions because he went to Alabama, and that was the best decision they could have made. Not only did Bo Scarborough come in and be one of the best players in the league, but all the Stallions fans loved him because, he is a Bama legend. So I remember being really frustrated with the XFL 2020 because Marcel Frazier was on the Seattle Dragons and Coney Ely was on the Houston Roughnecks. Could you imagine, if the defensive end tandem for that Battlehawks team was Marcel Frazier and Coney Ely? That's a Mizzou fan's wet dream.
Yeah, and not only did they mess up on that, but they messed up on, again, just the players that were on the Battlehawks last time that fans really liked. Marquette King, the punter, a lot of fans
he's
really
on
liked
Dallas.
him.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, that's where this league messed up a little bit, and that's where, because I think The Rock has done some really good things, and I think he has really messed up some things. And the players that were beloved on their teams in the XFL 2020 not going back to their respective teams, that was just something you had to do. You had to pull that off somehow, and they didn't.
Yeah. Shit, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I feel like they should have done something where you're right. If you're right, stay with whatever team you played with last. I know that there's a couple relocated teams, so that might be kind of hard to keep for them because there's no loyalty between the Tampa Bay and Vegas Vipers. They're practically a new team. But for at least for the existing teams, Tyler Silvers, or no, it's Brandon Silvers, my bad, was a good quarterback for Seattle in the last XFL, and now I think he's in Houston, and it's why?
Yeah, it's a
Just
puzzling
need some
decision.
continuity. A random guy that came to mind that kind of fits our narrative. Martavis Bryant is in Vegas. I don't think he ever played. I know he played for the Raiders. I don't think he ever played for the Vegas Raiders, but that's a good addition right there.
For sure. I was kind of mentioning, though, how The Rock has done some good things. He's done some bad things. Another thing that he did that I made a video on a while ago, and I didn't have you on for that one, but I wanted to talk about it and get your thoughts. The uniforms. The Rock changed a lot of the uniforms actually for this XFL run and the logos too. We can talk about the logos if you wanted to, because some of those.
I have a whole YouTube video just shitting on the logos.
Yeah, because some of those got changed. I'll tell you already know my thoughts on the uniforms. I think they look good. They're actually a good uniform, and I don't hate them, but I don't think they necessarily needed to be changed, especially the helmet. The Battlehawks helmet from XFL 2020 was the best helmet in all of football. Not even just the XFL. That was just a beautiful helmet. It worked. Everyone loved it. Why did you change it?
The new one's ugly.
I think it's okay. I do like that they're incorporating the color gray. I like it. I think this new uniform looks sleek. It looks more professional, but the old Battlehawks helmet should have stuck around.
Admittedly, the old Battlehawks uniforms kind of looked like an NCAA team builder uniform, but that was part of the charm, I think. And I don't know, especially with a league where, you were talking about how there was still Battlehawks Facebook groups that talked about, what Jordan Teamu was up to and stuff like that.
And that's where I'm going to post this podcast on those Battlehawks Facebook groups as soon as I get this up, because people are going to eat that up, and there are passionate Battlehawks fans out there that have been tracking this league since it shut down in XFL 2020.
Yeah, with a team like that, you can't really screw around. I understand why he did it because do you remember what company made the XFL's uniforms last time? I assume it was Nike.
I don't recall.
We're gonna say it's Adidas because why not? But yeah, obviously The Rock didn't have a deal with Adidas, and he's going to be pushing his what?
Too, because sorry, no, you cut out for a second. I thought you were done talking, but go ahead.
No, but obviously he doesn't have a deal with Adidas, and it's his Brahma Bull clothing brand that made all
Yeah.
the uniforms this time. So there might be like some copyright thing with bringing the uniforms back, but the Battlehawks helmets are just so bad that I mean, I assume it's like a copyright thing with whatever clothing brand made the last ones, but obviously he wants to do his own clothing brand thing or his own clothing brand to make this. And I assume, do you know about his Zoa energy drink?
Yeah, you cut out a bit.
Ah, shit. Anyway, that's not good. But
Well, it was only at the end there. I heard everything else and the Rock's clothing brand and the copyright thing, but you just cut out like at the
did you
very
hear me
end.
mention the Zoa energy drink?
No.
Well, I mean I follow The Rock on Instagram, so I know like all
I
of
do
his
know
like
about his energy drink.
right. But I'm just saying that like I imagine because the dude's I mean, deservedly so, but the dude's kind of a narcissist. Uh and I feel like, you know, how last time we had like the Bud Light seltzer parties with the famous Taylor Heineke clip. But I assume you're going to see all the players drinking Zoa energy drink instead of like Gatorade or something on the sideline. And, you know, the champions are probably going to celebrate with shots of Terramana whiskey. And it's just, you know, it's I just assume that we're going to see a lot of crossover of the Rocks branding. I'm shocked that one of the teams isn't called the Black Adams.
That would be horrible.
You know, the St. Louis Jumanjis. Uh, but no, I don't know. I just expect any brand that The Rock has to be incorporated. So
Yeah, it's also funny how there's still a little bit of a WWE connection with The Rock, obviously, as well. And I feel like that's part of the reason why Vince McMahon sold the league to The Rock. I think there were other interested buyers. And I mean, there's that WWE connection. Who knows? There might be a night where it's there might be some promotion. First 5,000 fans to show up, get a free Rock WWE t-shirt.
you know, like The Rock's gonna be there for the first game saying, can you smell what the XFL is cooking? Just like he did
Oh,
in 2000.
it's 100% happening.
Like, you know how he did that speech before the last Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I imagine he's doing that at the Battlehawks Brahmas first game.
Oh yeah. He seems yeah, I bet you he's going to be like a little kid about this thing, which is great though. I mean, it's good to see that he's so invested in this league and making it great. I don't agree with all of his decisions, but he's definitely the leader I think that the XFL needed when the league was being sold. I think Vince McMahon wasn't as passionate about it, and that's why he gave up on it so quickly. But I trust this leadership group, The Rock and Redbird Capital, and I've said it 100 times. The Rock can relate to these players that are in the XFL because he was once in their position. The Rock was once a former fringe NFL player that was just looking for a place to play, obviously before he started his WWE and acting career. And he can relate to these players, and I think he really cares about them and cares for them and wants to make this league good for them.
Yeah, his whole thing is like, oh, I was always the 54th guy. You guys are the 54th guy who aren't good enough to make the NFL roster and stuff like that. And he's talked a million times about how he left the U, went to the Ottawa Red Blacks, got cut. I think he got arrested or something. And then that's when he had to give up his football career. So, like, and that's honestly like the perfect mentality for a leader to have of this league is just like continuing these guys' football careers because that's why I watch it, you know, just one for more football and two, just to see guys that I know of keep going. Like, I want to see AJ McCarron play football. You know, he's one of the best Bama quarterbacks of all time. He deserves to he deserves to continue to play pro football.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're more than your casual football fan, so like we know a little bit more about a lot of these players throughout the league. And AJ McCarron is one of those. I mean, most casual fans should even know who AJ McCarron is, but
At
like
least
that's a name.
college fans.
Yeah, And that's a name, at least, that I think you'll probably see a lot of people from Alabama tuning in to watch Battlehawks games because AJ McCarron, he's a legend in Alabama.
I remember seeing somebody on one of my Alabama like Twitter pages in the comments saying that AJ McCarron is a better quarterback than Bryce Young. Like, they love AJ in Tuscaloosa.
If only we could have gotten Bo Scarborough with the Battlehawks, too.
Nah, I like Bo where he is with the Stallions.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I'm sure the leagues will merge at some point, or the USFL will fold, and a lot of those players will come over to the XFL anyway.
If that happens, I would like to see the XFL go to Alabama, though.
Yeah, Alabama was a good city, or a good state, I guess. Birmingham, I should say, rather.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like you could do Birmingham or Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got for this one, though, unless you wanted to talk about anything else Battlehawks or XFL related.
No, we're kind of starting to fall off a topic here. So
yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get back in the groove of things, man, and talk about the Battlehawks. I'm excited for the league to come back.
Yeah. Anyway, we both got to go to the gym, so.
Yep. The Rock would want it that way. But yeah, that's it.
Conclusion.
Yeah, that's it for this one.
I'm gonna go chug my Zoa energy drink and relax and watch the Jaguars game with a shot of Terramana whiskey. Feeling the mana today.
Sounds perfect. That's all I got though. The Battlehawks. I mean, unless anything big happens, we probably won't record again until after the first Battlehawks game. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could find something to talk about.
Am I going to be invited back on the channel before the first Battlehawks game?
Yes, unless you start
people
saying
want me.
Unless you start saying F the Battlehawks fans, which I hope to God doesn't happen.
Was I not supposed to be swearing?
Oh, no, I don't care about you swearing.
I was going to say, you should have told me that like 41 minutes ago.
I don't care. But who cares? Their children have seen everything that they shouldn't have seen these days, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, first game, February 19th at San Antonio, the Rock's beloved Brahmas. We'll probably be back. I mean, yes, we will be back after that game to talk about that one. We might even do a little pregame, depending on what things look like. Definitely a post game, though. That's all I got for this one, guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Battlehawks fans can find this. We'll be back with more Battlehawks content in the future, very near future. You can follow me on Twitter at ShowMeFB for more. You can also follow Connor. What do you want them to follow? Any of your Twitter?
No, I want them to follow my YouTube because my most recent video is from 2 months ago criticizing the new XFL logos. I don't know. I was going to make a YouTube video like fixing bowl season, but I feel like I kind of missed the boat on that, so I don't know if I should even bother making it anymore.
I still would.
Yeah, I mean, I guess next bowl season will roll around and then I'll get views that way. But yeah, go check out my criticizing the new 2023 XFL logos videos. I could use the views. I upload every 3 months, but
yeah, I'll leave a link in the description for that. But
no, you won't.
I will.
There's not a chance there's a link in the description. If there's a link in the description, I'll fucking Venmo you $1. Like, comment right now if there's a link in the description or not. I guarantee there's not. You never put links in.
I will put a link in the description. That's all I got, though. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com, where there's even more Battlehawks content, and we will see you all in the next one.
I should probably start writing there again, huh?